is going to help Eskom ultimately in paying back its debt a little more efficiently. But of course, it's just one of the many challenges facing Eskom. The Standing Committee on Public Accounts has been meeting with the Eskom board. That happened today, board and management, at the Power Utilities headquarters here in Johannesburg at Megawatt Park. Scopa, the committee, is investigating claims by the former Eskom boss, Andre de Ruyter, on maladministration, corruption and sabotage. Scopa chairperson Moloko Moloto saying they're making headway in those investigations. eNCA's Moloko Moloto is on the story. He joins me now. So, Moloko, we know that Andre de Ruyter's interview really blew this whole issue up. But the reality is Eskom has been plagued by corruption for many, many years. And there are lots of issues that are coming to the fore. So talk to me about the reason why Scopa travelled from Parliament up to Johannesburg to go to Megawatt Park, and I think also one of the power stations. What are they doing here specifically? What's been happening in the last few days?
Well, you are correct, Sally, but it is because of that interview with eNCA's Annika Lassen, where the former CEO of Eskom brought to light the allegations of maladministration and corruption within the power utility, and that there are some politicians who were also involved in that alleged corruption. And of course, he was called before Parliament. He still reiterated those remarks, but he did not mention the names of those politicians. Now, this is because he commissioned an investigation, the so-called intelligence investigation, and he got the report. And he says that he has given or told the new board, I think sometime in November or so. And this is the board that you would recall that it was brought into Eskom, I think, in September. Almost 10 months later to date, they have still, that is the board, not received that particular report. They say Andre de Ruyter did not give them that particular report. Now, Scopa is here to find for itself what progress has been made since those allegations have been made by Andre de Ruyter on the side of the new board. Now, the new board is saying where we are now is just that we are in the dark, essentially. We are expected to connect the dots because what we know is what we learn through the media. It is hearsay. They have still not been given that particular report. And the question from one Scopa member was, the SIU has that particular report. The media has that particular report. Why do you not have it? And the member of the board representing the board there says that they are still waiting on the SIU because they have made a request to the SIU to give them that particular report. And the question, I suppose, is why can't Andre de Ruyter give it to them? Did they even ask for it? But let's listen to the Eskom board member as she was explaining their difficulty.
Because everything for us at this point in time is a matter of connecting dots. You know, so you hear an Andre saying to the board, I am busy with an investigation. Because you don't have context when it is said to you, it is something that you then assume as part of the normal processes within the organization, and you would expect investigations to be conducted within the organization. So to connect that to the report and what the report is telling us, and then glance back at what we were told, we can't do that because we still don't have 100% of the full picture, and we're only really hoping that we will have that once we've been able to comb through that report. The reality is, up until now, our experience has been that much of the information we've been getting through the media and not through what one would expect to be the channels within the organization. And I'm saying that to just qualify that we may not still be in a position, we may find 5 months after we've come through the report, boom, there's something else.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. Exactly, like, you know, send Andre de Ruyter WhatsApp, please send me the report. Yeah. I'd like to have a look at it. It doesn't make sense. And this, I have to say, I watched some of this today, and they seemed involved, competent people who wanted to do the right thing. And I just don't understand why it's so difficult to get hold of this report.
Yeah.
But, you know, let's focus on what he said. I mean, we know that the Fivers report, there's some dispute of whether it's evidence or just information. The reality is we know there's large-scale corruption that's been going on at Eskom even since the state capture years. What did Scopa have to say about their concerns around ongoing corruption and some of the stuff that has started to come to light?
Well, Scopa was really frustrated. They expressed their disquiet, and actually Mkhuleko Hlengwa, the chairperson of Scopa, when he was still within the committee as he was addressing them, he said he doesn't get a sense that the allegations, the grave allegations raised by Andre de Ruyter are going to receive the attention they deserve, because he says, according to the submissions that is before Scopa, and no one has disputed that, is that there are politicians who are involved. And up to so far, there doesn't seem to be efforts or concerted efforts underway to ensure that the names of those two, whatever number of politicians are involved, are mentioned so that people can know as to what was their involvement. But when we spoke to him a little bit later, he's saying, look, we understand the dilemma that this new board finds itself in because it is still new, trying to find its feet. We are confident that they will try to get to the bottom of many issues that have been raised. Maybe let's listen to him.
Well, it's a new board, and so they've been thrown into largely the deep end in an Eskom that we all know as the country is in trouble. So on one hand, they are finding their feet. All we are saying is that do that with urgency. Hit the ground running, redouble your efforts, because the situation is dire in terms of governance at Eskom, but also dire for the country and the economy with the rolling blackouts or load shedding, whichever term you want to use. The second point is that the board, by its own admission, does not seem to have found the terms of reference given to ENS to investigate these things. Two, they are still not in receipt of the intelligence gathering report that was spearheaded by Mr. de Ruyter. So we don't doubt that they have got a commitment as individuals and as a collective. But where we have issue is that since appointment and up to now, and particularly since this saga emerged, we don't get a sense that they are actually moving with the kind of urgency that the situation requires, because it's our assessment that the issues raised are the microcosm of the challenges at Eskom. If you look at the changes that have been effected at Tutuka Power Station, one power station which had an EAF of 15 to 17%, now standing at 27%, it means that Eskom can be turned around, but it requires board will, political will. Urgency is probably the one word which must characterize the daily operations of anything Eskom, from governance to operations to transmission to consequence management and the law enforcement agencies, because they themselves are letting us down with what can be seen as a very lethargic approach or laissez-faire approach to investigation.
And speaking about law enforcement, Scopa also wanted more details, and this emerged yesterday, and I'm hoping you can give us the context. This was I think it was a 500 million rand security contract issued to Fidelity without a tender. When was this issued? Why was it issued? Why didn't it go to tender?
Well, I may not remember the exact date, but I think it was a year or two back. And Eskom argues that it received an alert that its infrastructure was going to be under attack. So they were awarding that contract under emergency. Yeah. Emergency
it has been, let's face it.
But the dilemma here, which was a question that was asked by Scopa, was that you actually phoned Fidelity to submit a quotation and you gave them this particular contract. Even if it was an emergency, what stopped you from at least sourcing quotations from at least 3 companies and compare the prices? What we know is that the executive manager responsible for security has now been suspended because a forensic investigation is underway to determine the legality and validity of that particular contract. Now, what is interesting is that the former chief operating officer, Jan Opelholzer, who has since retired from Eskom because of age. He's the one who approved that particular fidelity contract. He has now been brought back under the employ of Eskom on a 2-year fixed contract as a project manager managing Tutuka power station, I think, as well as the Kupe power station in Cape Town. And he obviously is getting the same salary he was getting when he was still COO. And Scopa was saying, you have suspended the general manager, and that contract was approved by Oberholzer, yet you are bringing him back despite the fact that the mess that we are seeing in the power stations happened under his watch because he was the COO overseeing operations.
And I suppose the question that needs to be answered is, if this R500 million was paid out to a security company, how effective have they been in stopping clear acts of sabotage?
And very important, the group acting CEO is saying that because we know the soldiers have been deployed to those power stations. He says the feedback he receives from the generals there is very concerning. They seem not to be winning in as far as the protection of the infrastructure, not only physical infrastructure, but also in terms of cyber and data and information. They don't seem to be winning that particular war.
Yeah, absolutely. We're certainly enjoying less load shedding, but the security concerns and the sabotage concerns remain. Moloko Moloto, thank you so much for that.